Yeah, it was weird today because then when I was telling her, I don't mind taking them, and it was like, it got like kind of weird. I was like kind of like eavesdropping a little bit, and then she was like, I'll take them, and I was like, okay.
I think she was feeling kind of guilty. She feels bad
I
saying,
know,
I
but like,
can't
it's
come.
no big deal.
But you know what happens when she gets back there? I find
It's
out some of those
yeah.
kids are very
Yeah, and
unruly.
you can't. But anyways, you can't take 2, 3, 4, 5
No,
year olds
and put them with
and
older
then
kids.
and then you want to have the older ones because they don't want to sit there and color.
Right.
So like it really just needs to be separate. So I was just like, well, I don't mind doing it, but I felt like she kind of like I don't know. It was like a little bit weird, but
Who's in charge of it? Kind of Dawn or Bill or who?
No, the
nobody
twin
really.
Girls. The twin girls are kind of like Sue and the twin girls.
But I mean, for you to get approval to do it, you
Oh,
have
I
to
just
do it.
asked Dawn.
Okay, yeah, that's what I meant. Like Dawn's the one that.
Yeah, like
y'all
she
do
was
it.
the one who said like, yes, you can do it, and then she was telling her like, hey, Michelle's gonna go back, and I think she thought like.
You were taking her job.
But then, because she told me that, they told her not to. But I feel like somebody told her not to because it's too much.
It is.
Not that she can't do it. It's just, it's unfair for her and for the
So
children.
now they're gonna separate it.
Yes.
It's too many. There are
And
too many
there's
kids
two
back there.
rooms. Obviously, there's two.
Yeah. Well, then, like there's the area that we eat in, and then there's the other like little area. So it doesn't matter where we go. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited.
That would be great.
I'm excited. I've always wanted to do it. So.
You can find you something.
Yeah, I'm gonna get like a curriculum so that we can like start and like do like
go through it.
do like a teaching, like a story, and then do a craft. We'll have like a snack.
You'll have Zoe and Morgan. I can't think of all the other kids'
Morgan?
names.
What's your little friend's name, Zoe?
Yeah, Morgan's 9 or 10. Is it gonna be 5 through 10 or what?
6 through like 11 or something.
Yeah, no, Morgan's 10, I think.
You should make it 6 through 15.
No,
that's
I would say like 11 would be like kind of like the cutoff age.
When you
I
turn
agree.
11,
12,
you
they
should
ought to
come.
be up front.
I think so.
And like Johnny helps once a month, and I think that's reasonable, but 12,
They need to be sitting
12
up
and up need to be up front.
Yeah.
Now, you're accountable, I believe, at 12 or
front. They need to
4.
sit up front.
All right, are we ready to begin?
Yeah, Big Addie let me know that some of those kids were, she said were really good, but some of those kids were really bad today.
Yeah, it's too much.
Did they like it?
Oh, yeah, they love going, yeah. They love going down.
All right, so we ready to get started? All right, so last week, obviously, we talked about Jeremiah, and then we've started reading Jeremiah on Wednesday nights. And so I thought maybe we'll follow up with Jeremiah with this. This discussion here, lesson is basic and simple in nature, but it's probably the most important type lesson that we can work on. So don't let the simplicity of it steer you away. So when I think of Jeremiah, I think of a guy who's probably going to do quite well at the judgment seat. In other words, he had a tough job. We read in chapter 1, God chose him because he knew him. He knew, and I believe that means he knew that he would go do it. And so he had a tough job. He willfully did the job. He got so hard on him. Y'all remember he tried to be quiet about the Lord and what was going on, but he said it just wouldn't work. The word of God was as a burning fire shut up in his bones, meaning he loved it. It was with him. It was part of him. He had to speak it. We know that Jesus said in the Gospels that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks forth. So that's the position of Jeremiah. So tonight I'm talking about crowns. And I have a one at the end. I'll talk about kind of a bonus one. I'll make a question out of. Y'all probably know it. But crowns. Don't underestimate the importance of this. All this deals deals somewhat with this life, but just about all these crowns deal with our eternal positioning. And over the last 10 years, we've studied the judgment seat of Christ a good bit off and on here. And I want to just remind you that it's not all the same for us there. And I'm not at all saying that I'm going to be above anybody. I'm saying this, that Paul said it's going to be a terrifying event. And we're going to know the terror of the Lord at that event. And we're already saved. We're looking forward. We're about to step off into eternity at that event. But we're going to know the terror of the Lord then. So you add all that up in the verses that go with it, and you begin to realize God's going to show us what we could have had. And I always liken that terror of the Lord at the judgment seat of Christ to the most basic analogy I can think of is you win a lot, you get a lottery ticket, and you realize you won, and it's Friday night. And you can't go cash the lottery ticket in. In our case, if we played the Florida lottery, we'd drive to Tallahassee to cash it in, to the state capitol. You can't cash it in until Monday. So you're sitting there with a $20 million lottery ticket Friday night, and you guard it like crazy the whole weekend. On the way to cash it in, it goes out the window into the bay, and it's gone for good. So let me finish the analogy. For the rest of your life in this flesh, every day of your life, you will remember what you could have had with that lottery ticket. You're human. Not you, me. Every day I'll remember if I wouldn't have lost that ticket, if I wouldn't have lost that. I don't care what I'm doing. If I'm buying a house, if I wouldn't have lost the ticket. If I'm buying a new car, wish I had the ticket. Every day. Okay. The judgment seat of Christ, I believe, will be like that, but that's all human stuff I'm talking about with lottery tickets and things. The judgment seat of Christ, that's all temporal stuff. The judgment seat of Christ will be similar, but times what? Times 1,000,000, times 10 million, times what? Because it's eternity. So, how does that relate to crowns? These crowns are crowns that we have for all eternity that I guess God will hand out at the judgment seat of Christ. So all I do, I think about these things from time to time, and what it does for me is real simple. It motivates me to live cleaner, and I don't live perfect now. It motivates me to study the Bible more, and I don't study it at every opportunity now. It motivates me to witness to more people, and I don't witness at every opportunity now. And so these crowns do those kind of things for me, so that's why I like to look at them from time to time. So, real basic. Let's go to Proverbs and look at the first one. The first crown I'm talking about here is a crown of glory, and the condition to gain that crown is called for here in Proverbs chapter 4. Proverbs chapter 4. So let me get my... So Solomon's dad, which we know who that was, is the subject matter here. Take it to the bank what he said here. In chapter 4 of Proverbs. Hear ye children, the instruction of a father, and attend to no understanding. For I give you good doctrine, forsake ye not my law. For I was my father's son, tender and only beloved in the sight of my mother. He taught me also and said unto me, let thine heart retain my words, keep my commandments, and live. So this is a God the Father and Son relationship, but I believe Solomon's talking about David. Verse 5, get wisdom, get understanding, forget it not, neither decline from the words of my mouth. So wisdom, if you just look up the basic old dictionary for wisdom, it's the right use of knowledge, or it's the faculty of mind to judge what is most just, proper, and useful. So you can have wisdom of the world, we'll see later on, that's of no value. In fact, it's of a negative value in terms of crowns. But there can also be good wisdom in the world. A doctor can have wisdom and use it, and I would go to a doctor myself and pay for his wisdom. But we're talking about wisdom that comes from these words right here, the words of God. So he says, verse 5, get wisdom, get understanding, and so on. Verse 6, forsake her not, this wisdom, and she shall preserve thee. Love her, and she shall keep thee. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. Exalt her, and she shall promote thee. She shall bring thee to honor when thou dost embrace her. She shall give to thine head an ornament of grace, a crown of glory shall she deliver to thee. Now this wisdom going on through the book of Proverbs and the rest of this Bible has application. This crown of glory has application in this life and the life to come. All through Proverbs, Solomon talked about how wisdom will guide you in discretion. Especially, you take a young lady, or a lady living in this world, or any of us really, but a lady with discretion has that. You can see her just out in public. She has a crown of glory. She has a clean, neat, positive, good look about her. A man is really no different. But the wisdoms of these words guide all things of this life. And if we'll seek after that wisdom, crown of glory available. So, let me hit a couple things about wisdom and we'll move on. I'm first going to we're close by, let's go to Psalm 110, which is back to the left just a couple of pages. And my wisdom started with my side. That's what this is about right here. And Psalm 111, I'm sorry. Psalm 111. So, in verse 10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So the kind of wisdom that David wrote here and Solomon wrote over there in Proverbs is about the fear of the Lord, about this book. This book is all about the fear of the Lord. In fact, I didn't care nothing of this book until after I feared the Lord. And the fear of the Lord is a good, healthy fear. The first fear of the Lord I had was, he said, if he's right, I'm wrong. I already knew I'd broken the Ten Commandments. I need to be saved. So I was afraid when I got saved. Fear drove me to call on God to save me. So anyway, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all they that do his commandments, and his praise endureth forever and ever. Because I fear God now, I continue to look at this book from time to time. And you say, well, that sounds like an odd way of going it. No, I'm afraid not to look at this book and study and think about it from time to time. Because without it, I tend to float off into the ways of the flesh. Because that brings God's chastening. And so I fear God. I fear this word in that regard. He's perfect, I'm not. That's the most simple, basic beginning of wisdom right there. I'm wrong, God's not. What does this book say about all that? And he being a righteous judge he's not a liar, he has to do something about my wrongs. So that's why I fear him. I know if I keep my head in this book later on, this crown of glory, it'll help me try to obtain. I'm not saying I've gotten anywhere with it all. That's between God and what he'll do. But anyway, keeping my head in this book, I'm afraid not to. I know there's reward for doing it. And with all the good health and the eyes and the time he's blessed me with, I think it would be bad for me not to. All right? So the fear of the Lord is the very beginning of wisdom, and then the fear should drive us to this book. I'm going to jump all the way back the other way to James. I'm still talking about wisdom for just a minute. What I intend to do is talk about each of these 5 crowns, hit 2 or 3 verses on each one, and then be done. And so I'm going to go to James, if I can get there, and look at just a verse where he says, what does he say? James 3, I believe, I want to go to. Okay. James chapter 3, let's go, let's see. Yeah, that'll work. There you go, thank you. All right, let's go to James 3:13. When we study right division of the Bible, I'm quick to point out that James was written to the 12 tribes scattered abroad, so that's not me. But when there's application and how to govern this flesh and how to live, and I'm not dealing with doctrine of salvation, James is just as good as what Jesus Christ said, and so on. So in James 3:13, he says, "Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom." No, if we'll go through the Bible and we'll study works, which are not for tonight, meekness of wisdom, we'll find out that the works, you don't wave a red flag at your works. You don't run around and say, look what I gave or look what I did. But you do meekness of wisdom. "But if ye have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not and lie not against the truth." So over in Psalms it says, only by pride comes contention. So we can't lie against the truth by saying, yeah, but it's his fault. Yeah, but it's that fault. I have a bad attitude because somebody did this to me or somebody did me wrong or whatever. When I have contention, it's my own pride problem. But anyway, verse 15. "This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, and devilish." Sensual, cares of the flesh. "For where envying and strife is, there is confusion in every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy." So the wisdom from above, there's all kind of stuff covered in that verse right there. But look at the last thing it says, without hypocrisy. So these false religions that in hypocrisy get money and talk about people, and really we can see through it. That's how I know they're false religions, because the wisdom's not from above. if there's hypocrisy in the teaching or in the program, it's not wisdom from above. That's one of the things there, but it's all, a lot of that is our personal getting along in this life with one another. Verse 18, and the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. So wisdom can bring the crown of glory. Backing up to 1 Corinthians, chapter 1. I wanted to read one psalm a while ago. I should have got it when we were there, but I'll finish up. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 21. I think that's where I want to go. Yeah. Let's start in verse 18 is fine. 1 Corinthians 1. For the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved it is the power of God. So the wisdom you have with the gospel that you carry in you to a person that's going to perish, because in God's own foreknowledge they're not going to accept your witness, you're talking foolishness to them, but you don't stop. You still try. All right, verse 19, for it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise and bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. A while ago in James, we were talking about wisdom from above, right? This book. Now we're talking about wisdom from the earth. He says, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise. That's not the wisdom from above. Verse 20, where's the wise? Where's the scribe? Where's the disputer of this world? Hath not God made foolish the wisdom of this world? So all this crazy stuff we see on the internet, different television programs sometimes and all that stuff, that's all foolishness with God. That kind of wisdom is the opposite of crown of glory. That wisdom will bring us sorrow and shame at the judgment. Verse 21, for after that in the wisdom of God, in the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God. So that's saying the wisdom of the world, the self-wise people that say, I got this whole thing figured out, they can't know God with that kind of wisdom. For after that in the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God. It pleased God by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. So, the wisdom. I am going to turn to this last one on wisdom. I'm going to go back to Psalm. I could have hit it while I was there. Y'all don't have to turn there. I'll read it aloud to you. I'm going to go to Psalm number 90. So, when I think of that crown of glory, here it is. This is kind of a summation of it. Psalm 90 verse 12 says, so teach us to number our days that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. That's, to me, it's very, very simple what he's talking about right there. Number our days. When I wake up tomorrow, I'm not adhering to that advice right there. That's not a commandment, but that's advice from a wise person to you and I. If I don't have the thought that sometime today, I better have me some time to think about this Bible, or think about telling somebody about this Bible. What I really mean is I apply my heart wisdom. I need to learn more about this Bible today. If I go through tomorrow without doing that, I haven't heeded that advice. And that crown of glory right there, I may not be striving to try and get it. And so if I do that the day after tomorrow and the day after and the day after, if I go a whole week, that's not good. That just means I'm not heeding that advice. Teach us to number our days. We don't know if we got 100 days left or 10 or 600. I may have 1,000 days left in my life. I don't know. What if I have 50 and I waste 5 of them? I've wasted 10%. What if I had 10,000? I waste 1. God's going to remind me what I wasted. And so to me, that's a big deal. And then y'all know my favorite verse about wisdom is in Isaiah 33. It says, "And wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times and strength of thy salvation." That's Isaiah 33:6. That's one of my favorites. All right, I'm going to go down for a minute now and talk about this one right here. It's a real important one, it's in. And I'll start off. I'll go to, I guess, Philippians 4 for that. I'll start there. Got just 2 or 3 verses there to look at. Philippians chapter 4. All right? Crown of rejoicing. This is a big one right here. This is a big deal. And it's so applicable to all of us. Okay. Let's see. Where did I want to go? After that. All right. Philippians 4. Therefore, my brethren, dearly beloved and longed for, my joy and crown. We'll catch a verse in a minute that explains this. My joy and crown, so stand fast in the Lord, my dearly beloved. So Paul's calling these Philippians, these believers, this church he started at Philippi, he's calling them his joy and crown. I beseech thee and beseech Syntyche that they be of the same mind in the Lord. And I entreat thee also, true yoke fellow, help those women which labored with me in the gospel, with Clement also, and with my fellow laborers, whose names are in the book of life. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. So now to get the what's going on there, turn to 1 Thessalonians. He's called those Philippians his joy and crown. So in 1 Thessalonians, I want to go to first, not second. I can find my way around here. I'm in 1 Thessalonians in chapter 2, and right now I'm talking about a crown of rejoicing. All right. He says, 1 Thessalonians 2, verse 17. But we, brethren, from you for a short time in presence, not in heart, endeavored the more abundantly to see your face with great desire. Wherefore we would have come unto you, even I, Paul, once, but Satan hindered us. For what is our hope or crown of rejoicing? Are not even ye in the presence of our Lord Jesus Christ? But these people that he led to Christ, and it's the exact same thing for you and I. Can you just imagine for 1 minute standing at the judgment seat of